Good evening everybody and welcome to the community conversation. My name's Graham Wood, I'll be chairing the meeting tonight. I'm the chairman of the Whitton Business Association, independent chair. I have no political allegiances to anybody, so I'm perfectly placed to do it. My role is basically to keep everything running on time, keep everything civil, make sure that any questions that you ask get answered properly and correctly and not fudged off. Did I say that? Sorry. You did. The request I would have from you is when you do ask questions, so the reason I'm standing up, not sitting down at the moment, is you'll have a microphone like this. Can you please hold it like this? I've never yet met someone who can talk out their belly button and you don't get heard. So please hold it up there, because this is being recorded. They're the film stars, you're not going to be on telly, but all the audio is being recorded, and if you don't use the microphone, what you say will not get picked up, and it won't then get edited later on, and your comments can't get actioned on. I'd just like to introduce the panel. This is a bit they're called reading out loud. So it's Councillor Leslie Pogash, we have Councillor John Coombs, Councillor Liz Yeager, we have me in the middle, not a councillor, Councillor Michael Wilson, Councillor Joe Humphreys, I didn't know that anyway, Councillor Robert O'Carroll, and we have two other council members in the room who you will be seeing a little bit later. We have Councillor Alexander Emmon, who is a cabinet member for transport, street scene and air quality. And I believe, did I see him here? Oh, the leader's not here yet, he's on the radio. He'll be coming down after his radio interview. And we also have our special guest. I'm sure you all recognise our community policeman who has turned up. He will be keeping you in order, any shouting out, he'll be taking you away. So I guess on with the meeting, really. Oh no, before we get on with the meeting, fire exits in case we do have an issue. There is one in the corner there, one there, one over there. Please just leave in an orderly fashion if you need to. No running, no pushing, no jumping, no screaming. I think that's what I need to do, is it not? Okay, so I'm going to start by handing it over to Councillor Emmon, who's going to speak to you about the 20 mile an hour. While the presentation is going on, if you have any questions, can you please save them to the end? I have seen the presentation a few times, so some of the questions actually get answered as he goes through, so save them till the end, then bombard him with your questions.
Thank you very much. And apologies if my voice gets a little bit hoarse at the moment. I had a cold for the last week, and I've also just arrived back from India where it's about 12:30, so I'll try and stay awake during my own presentation. So, what's being proposed? I think probably, if you're here, you probably are familiar with what we're proposing as a council, but just to clarify, we're proposing a reduction of the speed limit on all of the roads that are directly in the borough's control, with the exclusion of the A316 and the A305, so South Circular and the A316. And the plan is to make a borough-wide speed limit of 20 mph. Now, I guess the question that emerges from that is why? Well, there are four key reasons. I've categorised as safety, simplicity, savings, and straightforward. Safety being that the majority of accidents and injuries and fatalities, they occur on the major arterial roads, not just in the borough, but that's a general rule. So actually the worst incidents take place on the more major roads. So, because I'm conscious one of the arguments that has come up in previous sessions about whether we should have made a distinction between residential and non-residential roads, and so just to make the point, the reason we've included non-residential roads is because that's where actually an awful lot of harm takes place. Simplicity, we're having one limit across the borough. It sort of speaks for itself. You know, variable limits, patchwork of limits across the borough. People don't really know what they're doing. They're constantly having to be vigilant for changes. I think there's a strong argument for saying you're in the borough, it's 20, with the notable exceptions of the two roads outside our control. That's the case. There's a savings argument here because, as I found out, I didn't realise this actually until we came into office, but to deliver this proposal is roughly about £700,000. To deliver a partial 20 mph in the borough would be roughly, in excess of double that, about £1.5 million, because it requires variable signing and so on. So there is a cost-saving implication to the extent of the proposal that we've got. And straightforward relates to the fact that if we had drawn some distinction between roads, I'm very conscious of the fact that that would have resulted in an extended conversation with a number of residents who found themselves on roads that were 20, or proposed to be 20, who felt that they wanted 30, or people who were on 30-mile-an-hour speed limit roads that wanted to be in 20. So we could have had this sort of never-ending conversation about who calls the shots about whether or not a road with a significant residential population is 20 or 30. So I feel there's an equitability about what we're proposing as much as anything else too. So a quick picture on the present picture around speed. So we've done some initial benchmarking work so that if we implement this measure, we'll be able to ascertain what effect it has had. And the key finding is that we have an average mean speed across the borough of 21.9 mph. That's quite a high speed, actually. Most people have been slightly surprised by how high that figure is. I should say that please don't think that means that we're only 1.9 miles per hour over the speed limit, because that conceals, of course, a wider range of speeds both below and above. But it shows the sort of general speed level when taking as that mean average. And we have a third of average mean speeds in excess of 24 mph in the borough. I'm not going to dwell on this slide in great length because it doesn't lend itself to detailed consideration from afar, but this presentation is available on the website if you haven't seen it already. The key thing I want to draw out is that Richmond is moving on road safety in the wrong direction. So the trend in outer London, so we're not taking into consideration inner London boroughs here, in outer London from 16 to 17 showed an overall 2% reduction in casualties. In our case, as a borough, we've seen a 2% increase. And so that, even notwithstanding some methodological changes that have taken place in terms of judgments between casualties and serious incidents, that's a like-for-like comparison. So, we're not doing well compared to our peers. Quickly rattle through this, it's just the beginning of a sort of rationale, I think, for saying, well, that there is a cost-saving element to what we're proposing, actually, if you look at it in a wider context than just simply council spending. So the cost of a slight classified accident is $22,300, and as we pointed out in this slide, with the 436 of those that we have in the borough at the moment, and a moderate reduction in those slight collisions as a result of 20 mph of about 6%, which is not an unreasonable expectation, that would yield a saving in a single year of £579,800. Now, that's not a saving directly to the council, that's a financial figure put on a whole range of different factors, but including the use of our emergency services and so on. So, and then if you take into consideration the implications of any sort of reduction of a serious accident or indeed of a fatality, you'd instantly eliminate vast swathes of the cost. I mean, the financial cost of a single fatality is, in this slide, is £2.5 million. So, forgetting the personal nature of that, there is actually a sort of a pound shilling pence implication too. So I've got two consecutive slides, which I'll just rattle through briefly here, but they show, in this slide, the darker the green, basically the greater the overall application of 20 mph within a given London borough. And what you'll see is obviously a very strong concentration, sort of north to south in the centre there of boroughs effectively with almost absolute, if not absolute, 20 mph. The mid-green is a significant portion of 20 mph roads, with the lighter green being some 20 mph. I think the following slide is actually perhaps more telling, because more of a visual prompt. The green roads on this are 20 mph, and the blue roads are 30 mph. Obviously, there are a range of other different speed roads in there, but they don't stand out quite as clearly. And what I really just want to convey from this is sadly, from my perspective, I like as a council to be the vanguard of activity, but the reality is this isn't a vanguard of activity in Devon. This is a fairly widespread phenomenon in our capital city. So that's what that's about. A few points here. The general consensus, and we've gone into this very open eye, look, the difference between 30 and 20, it's mathematically 10 miles per hour, but we've been very cognizant of what the data has shown. And what data has shown in a number of London boroughs that have implemented these measures, they've seen 1 to 2 mile per hour reductions. Now, that might seem, it's a bit disappointing, it's a bit low and so on. And the reality is we would clearly be endeavouring to deliver more than that if at all possible. But this key point is the larger front point at the end, which is there is a strong basis of evidence which shows that for every 1 mph reduction in speed that we get a 5% reduction in accidents. So, however modest that may appear, a 1 to 2 mph reduction in speed could have a 5 to 10% reduction in accidents, which is fairly material. So, just some key figures about sort of the rationale here and about some of the findings. The key one for me is the top one. You've got a 20% chance of a pedestrian fatality, a 1 in 5 chance when you hit 30 mph. Notwithstanding that, of course, some people in the borough are travelling in excess of that speed limit. You only got 2.5% chance of a pedestrian fatality at 20 mph. So, fundamentally, anyone in this room that's hit by a car outside here has a fundamentally different chance of surviving that accident depending on whether that vehicle was doing 20 or 30, regardless of the circumstances in which it takes place. And that, for me, is a pretty core argument for this change. Again, this is not going to naturally lend itself to you, but I think at the back of the room we've also got the same diagram, which you can consider in a bit more detail. But this shows, and it relates to my point made earlier about why we decided to take in the major roads. It shows the distribution of accidents, injuries, and fatalities in this part of the borough, and I think what you'll see is there is a fairly strong bias towards the more major arterial routes in the area. So again, there's an example that's slightly better to see. The green dots being the incidents concerned, and it's pretty clear, not just in Whitton, but more broadly, Whitton and Heathfield, but more broadly that very few accidents actually are taking place on what we would describe as residential roads. I'll rattle through this one, but I think what it does show, this data, is very data sets from other local authorities that have implemented these measures, similar scale. Bristol's, I think, particularly stands out because they did a very significant body of work looking at the cost reduction implications of 20 mph, and I mean, very, very tellingly found that in the case of their 20 mph limits, they estimated a total casualty savings of in excess of £15 million over the course of the year. So, pretty sizable figures. And that was from an average speed reduction of 2.7 mph in Bristol. Portsmouth and Edinburgh also had very significant findings, some of which related to an uptake in cycling and so on as well. So I just wanted to tackle one of those points because it's come up in a few of the sessions. What kind of impact is this going to have on us as motorists? And I just want to contextualise, I suppose, typical car usage in London. 2/3 of all car journeys in London, this is Transport for London data, are less than 5 kilometres in distance. And a third, not of that, but a third of all car journeys are even lower. They're actually less than 2 kilometres in distance. So, doing the basic maths here, on the 5k journey, and that would be assuming that every one of these journeys is 5k, which of course they're not, there's anything up to 5k. But even assuming the longest distance here, then for 2/3 of the car journeys that take place in London, you're talking about the difference on 20 mph on a consistent speed from stop to start of 30 versus 20, you're talking about a 3-minute differential, an additional 3 minutes in a car. Similarly, on the 2k journey, we're talking about an additional minute. And that is from a stop-to-start 30 versus 20, which of course is not the reality of most car driving. If it is, you're a very, very lucky commuter indeed. You've also got a very fast car. So, as I've said here, the average driving speed is actually 16.5 miles an hour across London, so much, much lower in fact anyway. So I'm making a very strong pitch to you, I suppose, that if we go ahead with this, if we get a residential spot, I'm really saying to you, I don't think to any degree of perception that the people in this borough will notice the difference that makes to their journey times. So this kind of, I've already covered this, but it's really us setting a scene for what our realistic expectation is. We very much will be working, if we get support for this measure, to get vehicle speeds down to that 20 mph limit. We expect, as I'm sure the police do, that when a limit is enforced, it should be respected and it should be complied with. But we're also open-minded, as I say, about what the evidence shows about the overall impact of these measures. And so our key factor here is to see an overall reduction in speeds across the borough. Just a couple of other points. One is air quality was mentioned as being part of my title. So clearly, if the measure that we were proposing was going to have a deleterious effect on air quality, that would be quite a bad outcome. I just wanted to point out why it is that despite some of the noises that are made by opponents of this measure, that in fact that's a misnomer that the air quality actually will improve under this approach. There is evidence out there that shows that harmful emissions come down when average speeds are reduced. Critically, two different types of air quality sort of contributors, pollutants called PM2.5 fine particulates and PM10, which generally come from brake material and from tyre material. And actually, sadly, we've shown in recent studies have a very strong relationship to mouth cancer prevalence. Those two forms of air quality pollutants, those absolutely come down. I mean, it's just, common sense. If you're braking from 20 versus 30, or indeed from any speed that is lower than the speed you would be travelling at 30, your amount of brake wear and your amount of tyre wear is reduced. And so there is going to be a reduction in PM2.5 and PM10. And as I said, I suppose the most critical factor in terms of improving air quality is not any of the minutiae about the scientific judgments about emissions or about PM2.5 and PM10, worthy though they are. But the critical factor is that, excuse me, we see where these measures have been implemented an increase in the amount of people that feel able and willing to go out and cycle and to walk. And so an increase in modal share of walking and cycling. That has the biggest impact on air quality, because for every car that isn't on the road for an under 2 kilometre journey that is instead conducted by bicycle or by foot, that's no emissions, right? It's just an instant reduction. So the biggest impact on air quality is modal shift. I would just say at this point, because in case we cover this as part of the questions, I've also said in the previous session, I just want to restate the record. I've only spoken with two leading air quality experts, because I've only run into two leading air quality experts. They're not that common. But one from the University of West England, another one from King's College London. And I asked them the question before we consulted on this, what's this going to do to air quality? And both said to me that it will have no negative impact whatsoever, and it has every prospect of improving air quality. So don't take it from me, take it from leading academics and working in this field, rather than people who might posit all sorts of strange theories about air quality. This comes from an expert base. Critically, that point I make about modal shift is based upon making streets less hostile. In urban areas, a reduction of speed between 20 and 35 mph also has this very nice impact of reduction of speed by 6 mph, would cut noise levels by up to 40%. This is a finding that came out after we began consulting from the UK Noise Association. There's an interesting sort of additional benefit here actually. 20 mph reductions in speed will result in less ambient noise for us as people going about our daily business, whether in our homes or out on the street, which I think also has to be a beneficial outcome as somebody who's experienced an awful lot of honking of cars and vehicles in India for the last week. Critically, we have seen a number of studies showing really good uptake in cycling and walking in terms of modal shift as well, like the end of the study. Just want to say a quick slide, also a slightly more negative point, but some people have raised in the previous sessions, Bath and North East Somerset. This is the great example of how 20 mph doesn't work. I'm sorry to say that's not the case. Indeed, I'm sure some people will be waiving DFT-related documents a bit later, but I've also got some, sadly for those people involved, I've got some answers to that too. But on Bath and North East Somerset, well, two things. It was a heavily politicised debate, where a Liberal Democrat administration implemented this, and the Conservative Party were very anti it. And it's a local government area, I know quite well, I've brought up here. It ping-pongs between Conservative and Liberal Democrat administrations, and I don't know whether that relates to politics, I couldn't say, but we don't have any parallels here. But it meant it was a very, very political issue. But that's not the key factor. The key factor is what they actually implemented was 21-hour zones. And without going into too much sort of labyrinthine detail, because a lot of people are interchangeable terms. Zones is It's generally about smaller areas, and it's generally about, and it is about implementing physical measures on the road to reduce speed. And so what Bath showed, actually, if you look at the studies in detail, was actually a lot of the problems that resulted in increased incidents on their road network was because of the way they designed those zones and because of the interaction between zones. And actually, not to get too ahead of myself, but in the DFT report that came out, the really golden example that's in there that even the DFT, with their slightly negative perception of 20 mph, had to acknowledge was that Brighton, when they implemented exactly what we're proposing here, 20 mph limits across the entire local area, that had very, very significant consequent reductions on accidents, injuries and fatalities. Brighton is a real example of how this can be done, and actually the DFT had to acknowledge it would seem that wider schemes that cover the entire area, that don't have variability, that don't have all of these engineering measures in, actually tend to deliver better. So, but we can, no doubt, come on to that later. So, as me, I don't really want to talk at any more great length than that. I just wanted to set the context and hopefully answer some questions to some people before you ask them. But this is very much about me hearing from you. I am going to give a spirited defence of this measure because I believe it's right. I believe it will deliver for residents, so don't expect me to fold in front of you, but I'm very interested in hearing your views.
Right, thank you very much for that. We do have a couple of pre-submitted questions on 20 mph. So John Evans, are you here? Yes. If we get my phone out to John, please. Thank you.
The Council has used the latest accident figures released by TfL showing the borough's serious accidents are rising at a faster rate than overall numbers in outer London to endorse their case for introducing a borough-wide 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. It is stated that from 2016 to 2017, the number of people killed or seriously injured in the borough rose by 6% to 77, compared to a 1% rise across outer London. Without knowing just how many serious accidents might be affected by the introduction of a borough-wide speed limit of 20 miles an hour, this figure of 77 accidents is meaningless. Can you please tell us how many in total of these 77 accidents occurred on the A316, the South Circular Road, on existing 20-mile-an-hour roads outside schools and in Richmond Park, plus drivers already travelling under 20 mile an hour on roads currently with a speed limit of 30? If we deduct these, it leaves us with only those accidents that could have been directly affected by reducing the limit from 30 to 20.
Right, I'll try and answer that. There's an awful lot of points in there. It wasn't a simple, question with one element to it. So the first thing is the data set that we've used, which I've used in this presentation, is a 1-year analysis. It wasn't the 2 years that you mentioned. And in that case, the data set that we use is the same data set as you're using. It's TfL data, and it excludes all TfL roads. So those TfL roads that you mentioned, the 806 South Circular, no bearing whatsoever. I also believe it leaves out the wrong parts because they're private roads and nothing to do with the borough. So to answer your question, on all those measures, these figures are based on our own network, based upon our proposed roads for inclusion in 20 mph. In terms of roads that have 20 mph on them, in this borough there are very few. And what I would say to you is I don't have the specific information. I mean, all of that data is on there. It shows where all those incidents are on the map, so you can pick through them as well as I can. What I would say, though, is there is an amazing causal relationship between the seriousness, and you were talking about serious accidents, the seriousness of the outcome of a collision with a pedestrian or a cyclist, and the speed being travelled. If you're travelling at 10 mph, the chances of a serious accident are practically nil. If they're travelling at 20 mph, the chances of a fatal accident are 2.5%. So, whilst I can't give you absolute minutiae kind of breakdown of that data set right here, right now, I can tell you hand on heart and with absolute certainty that these serious incidents occurred in many cases because of speed, and that by a reduction in speed, that figure would be low.
Can I come back on that?
Yeah.
Just grab my
This argument was used.
Can you wait for the mic, please? Just so yes.
This argument was used in the Richmond Times, and it clearly said 77 serious or fatal accidents. Nobody corrected that. That referred to Richmond. People are making their decisions on what appeared in the paper.
Well, let me say this. I haven't got our data, but look at these savings. Look at these serious incidents. Number of casualties avoided per year in Bristol, where they implemented basically this measure, 11.3. I don't know what their base was, but there you are. 11 serious incidents didn't happen because of what they did. So I don't know what the figure will be. That's why we're recording the data, that's why we'll monitor the figures, that's why we'll be open to robust scrutiny on whether or not these measures, if implemented, will deliver the right outcomes. But I'm standing up here confident and personally persuaded that it will reduce serious accidents, that it will reduce fatalities, and it will reduce life injury. And I cannot see any logic for why it will not. Slower speeds mean fewer accidents, and when the accidents occur, less serious consequences.
That assumes everybody will obey it.
No, it doesn't. It assumes exactly the point I made, which is 1 to 2 mph reduction results in a 5% reduction in accidents for every 1 mph reduction. So even if we only achieve what has been achieved in other London boroughs that have implemented these measures, we will see a 5 to 10% reduction in accidents. That has got to be worth it. I can't see another measure available to me as a Transport Cabinet member that will deliver a 5 to 10% reduction in those accidents and might result in one person in this room, as an example, being here next year when they might not otherwise.
Okay, Joan Gibson, are you here, Joan?
My question was more about the equality of the implementation of 20 miles an hour. So will we be changing traffic sequencing, traffic light sequencing so it fits for 20 miles an hour? They haven't in Hounslow, and it's a pain in the neck.
So the answer is that at the stage of our thinking, we're not planning on making immediate changes to any of the failing lights. But I have spoken with officers, and it has been agreed if there are any significant consequences on travel times or anything as a result of that, we can look to tweak those. So I can say to this hall and in general in relation to this consultation, that is something that we are open to doing, and if it's necessary, we will do it.
And what monitoring will you put into place to catch those quickly? Because that's just saying, oh, we're not going to do anything.
No, so all of the data that I presented on the average speeds comes from, I can't remember off the top of my head, there are a lot of figures in this space, so forgive me, but we implemented a really good cross-section of measurement points of speeds across the borough. You might have seen the tapes, the sort of lines in various places, and we did that some months back. We will continue to have those in place, and we will monitor speeds through those same point counters. And that will give us an idea of what effect, if we implement this measure, it's having on people's movements through the area and what speed. Ultimately, I think we'll also be driven by correspondence from you as residents. If you bring it to our attention that there are specific issues of places on the road network, as I would expect you to do today, we will look at them and we can do more investigative work to assess whether there's a problem and whether we can shift it.
Okay, that's the 2 pre-submitted you've got for that. If we can have a show of hands to people who want to ask questions, we'll get on to you. So stay in that area so you don't have to run too far with the microphone.
I don't have it, so can I speak?
You can speak. You have a mic. If the microphone's given to you, you're allowed to speak.
I'm passing it around, and then that was me. My name's Jenny. I live on Woodlawn Estate. I think the speed limit there is already 20 miles an hour, but nobody goes at 20 miles an hour. I don't, I'm afraid, on most occasions.
You've got a policeman there.
I'm not aware of that. Maybe call them, don't I? The point I'm making is who is going to police this? Because I can't see how it's going to be policed correctly.
Yeah, so that's a question. I'll give you an answer. So, unsurprisingly, I suppose, when it comes to policing, the policing, for want of a better expression. And look, it's come up at previous sessions, and I feel a bit sort of cruel talking about the police when they're here in presence, but the reality is that an awful lot of residents would like to see greater enforcement of speed limits as they stand. But the police are under pretty tight resources, and I dare say if they were to say something, that's what they would focus on. There is no proposed change from our perspective as a council to the enforcement regime. So the police that enforce 30 mph today would enforce 20 mph if we go ahead with this measure. Now, we as a council can look potentially at further measures if we need to. If we find that after we assess this that we haven't seen speeds come down enough, it may be that with resident support that further measures might want to be pursued, but that would only be with resident support. At this stage, what we're doing is we're saying to you as residents, the proposal is a like-for-like change. It's existing enforcement at 30 for existing enforcement at 20, and all of the reference points to the data that I've used for other London boroughs and elsewhere has been exactly the same. Because actually, if we were arguing for a significant uptick in enforcement, a change in enforcement, that would skew these figures. We'd be potentially misleading you by saying, well, the reason these figures were achieved was because there was a step change in enforcement, and that's not the case. The case is this is a like-for-like change in enforcement. Whether you're happy or not with that, I think is for you to raise directly with the police, and it's good to see that here. But ultimately, we're not suggesting anything other than the existing enforcement regime. I'm sorry, I should just say on the existing, your point about 20 mph, one of the reasons for non-compliance, and again, the DOT data kind of bears this out in their recent report, is that when you have these sort of one or two road piecemeal 20 mph, people just don't bother. They don't bother because they're just seen as an outlier. I'm only going to be in it for two minutes, not even that, 30 seconds. I can't be bothered. And the police aren't there, and nothing's happening about it. I think there is something to be said for, and indeed, as I pointed out, the Brighton data shows this. A borough-wide, or in their case, town-wide approach results in a better level of compliance and an overall higher level of reduction in speed, because people get used over time to the fact they should be doing 20 rather than it as an oddity in certain roads.
Okay, next question, please. It's the lady there. Move the mic along one.
Thank you. Just need to clarify a couple of things before I can ask this question. This budget comes from TfL.
The majority of the budget, not all of it, will be funded by TfL money. Yeah.
What's the total budget that you have?
This budget we're proposing is the work of...
No, this is going to cost 700k.
Yeah.
What's the total pot amount you have in the pot?
Well, the total funds that we receive from TfL varies depending on our allocation, but it should be in excess of this figure.
Ah, right, okay. What else can it be spent on?
It can only be spent on the Mayor's priorities, which are generally speaking in relation to air quality changes or in relation to reduction in fatalities and injuries on the road.
Does it include things like pothole repair?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
It doesn't?
No, it doesn't.
So it only includes things like that?
Yeah. So it's a very, very tightly ring-fenced fund of money that relates to these types of measures. And we have to specifically bid for it. We have to set out a proposal in what's called the local implementation plan, which goes to the Mayor of London. The Mayor has a stated ambition for reducing road injuries and fatalities on the road to zero, and that is why the measures relating to the local implementation bid that we make have to have a bearing on those types of factors.
Okay, my question's redundant then.
Okay, next one, please. Gentleman at the front here. Oh, look at this side. We have to join in. Put it on.
Good evening, my name is Mr. Joyce, I live in Whitton, and I'd just like to put it to you, you're supposed to the council doing what the residents want, not to get any argument, I think it's ridiculous, but would you be correct by sending a forum round to every householder stating, do you want it or don't you want it? The answer comes in, and every resident's got what they want.
Let me tell you a little bit about that. So first of all, we went into the last election as a party with this on our manifesto that we would do this. We would do this measure. I come in as a cabinet member, and I actually realised it's such a big measure, it's so significant, the right thing to do is to consult. That's why we've done a public consultation that's run for 3 months and will finish on the 21st of December. That's why you can respond, and that's why the most powerful thing you can do in this process is to express your view one way or the other through the consultation, and we will look at what those results say. So this isn't a foregone conclusion. We sent out a leaflet to every household We sent out a leaflet about this consultation right at the beginning to every household. We've had a concerted social media effort. We have done, I have done 5, I think, of these so far, of these community conversations, personally, and I am doing every single one of them across the borough. We are doing everything within our power to make sure that residents know and can participate in this consultation, and indeed there may even be a subsequent leaflet drop in the remainder of the campaign. So, yeah, we have tried, within the bounds of being sensible in the use of taxpayers' money, we have tried everything we can and will continue to try right up until the 21st of December to make sure that everybody in this borough who wants to know about it, knows about this consultation and can participate. And so I don't think that's a bad way to approach this change. Yeah.
Okay, we have to open this up back in the green, please.
Can we therefore say that if you get a negative response to this, it will be shelved?
So, I've had this question at almost every session. It's a good, consistent challenge. So, the first thing to say about this is a consultation and not a referendum. So it's not a referendum. This is not a we need 51% to be able to do this measure. That's not what we're proposing. That said, if the level of support isn't at that sort of level or in excess of it, that raises significant questions, and we need to sort of understand from the consultation what the concerns are and what the inhibiting factors are and whether people want to support it. And we'll have to do that, and we'll have to look at whether that results in a change. The truth of the matter is that I'm aiming for, and I'm campaigning for, a very clear, demonstrable level of support from residents to go ahead with this. There'd be no point in consulting on this if 90% of residents responded and it was overwhelming, told us they didn't want it. It would be a pretty mad administration to want to soldier on. But there are sort of hue and grey in between that. And what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to say, unless we get one more vote for it than against it, as it were, in this process, that we're not going to go ahead with it. I'm not saying that, because in the same way I wouldn't say the opposite too. I think that would be unfair. It's a consultation. It's about, as I've said in previous sessions, it's as much about the quality of the arguments that are made against the measure as the number of representations made about it. Because I have to be honest, I've heard a lot, particularly on social media, I've heard an awful lot of bunkum and an awful lot of kind of made up figures and sort of, home-brewed statistics, which don't make any sense. I'm using, coherent, clear data from other local authorities across the piece. So if people can present us with arguments why there are specific issues on certain roads or with our approach, then we will listen to them. We'd be stupid not to. But I'm not going to say to you here and now that we're going to treat this like a referendum, because it isn't a referendum, it's a consultation.
Okay, do we have someone else that something there? Yes, the lady.
Thank you. Well, I have driven our daughter for 11 years every day, apart from the holidays, through Whitton up to Richmond to take her there to the German school. And I have to say, in all these 11 years, the traffic was as bad as it could be. It takes about maybe 40 minutes to get from Whitton there. But the drivers were driving brilliantly, and there wasn't a change from how it was 11 years ago to 11 years later. What I realized what had changed was the behavior of the pedestrians, of the cyclists, and of the bikers. And we once came across an accident on the A316 with a motorbike driving outrageously and just flying through the air. But otherwise, in all 11 years, there was never ever an accident. But the cyclists and the pedestrians, you have cyclists driving, now getting dark early, with no lights on their bicycles. They don't bother to use the cycle lanes, which are along roads in some cases here in Richmond. They just drive on the main road, so I don't know if that is part of your statistics of cyclists being hit on the road, where they actually shouldn't be, because the cycle path is right next, really protected. And also pedestrians who are taking sometimes risks, and I think maybe educate people not to take risks, whether they are 70 miles an hour or 20 miles an hour, or maybe in 10 years' time we look at 10 miles an hour, and I don't know. It's
so okay. Let me try and address that. There are a number of different parts of that. So I'm sensing if you take your children to German school, you might be German yourself. Right? In Germany, there are an awful lot of roads that have much lower speeds than 30 mph. In fact, practically every residential road has a 20 kilometers per hour speed limit on it in urban areas in Germany. So I think I'm slightly surprised to hear you make the argument. I say that someone who has some German heritage myself. Two things really I would reflect on. So I do think we need more respect between all road users. I'm not coming at this saying that the car motorist is a problem. But what I will say is this: both pedestrians and cyclists instantly get more virtue from my perspective, because the vehicles that they're using, their feet and their bicycle, they don't emit any pollution. So actually, they're doing good by travelling on those forms of transport. For every person on a bicycle, for every person that walks, that's one less car congesting your road and making your journey to the German school more of a problem and more lengthy. So they're doing a virtuous thing. Right? They may be doing it in a number of individual cases, not as virtuously as we might like. They may not be driving as well, they may not be as well illuminated as we might like, and so on. I do slightly take a difference from you as well on the cycling infrastructure. So we should put in as much cycling infrastructure as we can and protect segregated cycling lanes and so on. When they work really well, when they're really useful, when cyclists find them helpful, they use them. And actually, if the cyclists choose not to use them, I think that is the most telling endorsement of whether or not we've got the infrastructure right. And I think, I'll be honest with you, hand on heart, I look at the infrastructure across the borough that we provide for cyclists, and I think it's rubbish. I think it's pretty rubbish. So we need to go further. The other point I'd just make is the types of cyclists that we have out there today are generally speaking male, they're generally younger, and they generally, therefore, for all those range of reasons, have a different risk profile that they take to things. They have a different psychology. They've been described as many different things, being a sort of like the cat brigade. One of the ideas behind this is if we decrease the hostility of the road, we start to bring out different sorts of cyclists. And I've said in the previous session as well, I believe that will have a civilising effect overall on our roads and on cycling. I think one of the greatest advertisements we can have for cycling is to have cyclists that are 60, 70-year-old on a utility bike going to buy their bread down in the shops, not some, like-a-planned individual going through the borough at whatever speed, trying to get to London. So I think actually by bringing people who particularly find the roads hostile at the moment onto our road network, on cycling, or to get people walking, I think will improve things. I have to say, I haven't heard this before, but I haven't seen any perceptible difference in the nature of pedestrians in terms of the way they're behaving. And I certainly won't blame, I'll never blame a pedestrian in general for an incident where they're a person wearing only skin, and the thing that hits them is a metal tank. And honestly, anybody in that circumstance is going to come off worse being a pedestrian. So I have to say, if I have a general view, I support pedestrians and cyclists because of what they're doing.
Let's raise a few hands and come up. Not shout out because you're not on my phone, but if we can come to a question at the front here first, please. We've got a couple more minutes on this before we need to move on, but we can come back to it later on.
Well, I was going to ask a question about cycling. Funny enough, I'm looking at a threefold increase in cycling to schools in Edinburgh. You've talked about cyclists, but one of the things I think is very obvious in Whitton, wherever you live in the borough, or probably Heathfield, is the number of cyclists, adults, male, female, school people, that cycle on the pavement. Now, yeah, do we agree? Yeah. So therefore, if we are therefore going to look at reducing the speed of cars, are we going to inform people? Because I think there is a lack of understanding that it's actually really illegal to be cycling on the pavement. And if we're going to have more pedestrians and more cyclists, are we going to put more pedestrians in danger because the cyclists on the pavement, or are we going to get them on the road? And I really apologise, but I do believe that I can't remember who's done it, but somebody has actually asked police, boroughs, no idea who's done it, to be more lenient with cyclists. This is not a priority at the moment in any shape or form because of the danger of the roads. So I see where you're coming from, but I think it's a pedestrian. I'd like to know that when I walk, I'm not going to go from half dozen more cyclists trying to run me over.
Okay, so again, there are multiple points to this. First thing, I don't know who's written to the police. I don't know what that reference is.
It's a legal beat. I'll send you it.
I'm aware that the police don't. It depends on the force, but the police tend not to place a particular priority, and they also exercise discretion because, you know, actually, if you're a mother with a child who's learning to cycle, right, is that really worth, you know, telling them they need to get on the street? What I would simply say is this. There are going to be, look, there are always going to be kind of bad cyclists like there are bad people, right? And the job of the police, this is not the job of the council, but the job of the police is to deal with that. Whether they're dealing with that sufficiently well, you can make a judgment, and you should definitely attend your next police liaison group. But what I would say is this: one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons that people are on bicycles is because they don't feel safe on the road. And if you reduce speeds, then it's a safer environment. And that will mean that some of those cyclists who are presently on the pavement can get into the road and should be encouraged to be in the road. And so one of our principles is to make our road network less hostile to cyclists. And by doing that, I'm hopeful that we will be able to bring people back onto the road where they should be, rather than having to hide from cars doing in excess of 8 miles an hour in the speed limit.
Because I just pedestrian, you have to hide from bikes.
So look, I hear these points, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I walk an awful lot in this borough. I see it too. I've been hit by a cyclist walking, right? But I also don't, as a result, say I hate cyclists. That is. No, I've just simply said that is a cyclist. That is a bad cyclist. I've seen many bad motorists, but we don't say all motorists are bad. I think we've got to I accept you're not saying that, but I'm merely pointing out, I've heard these types of arguments across the borough, and I want to avoid us turning into, as a borough that is antagonistic towards any road user.
Right, you can take one more, and then we can move on. Can we not shout out, please?
I've been hit twice by a cyclist. Yeah. I've never been hit by a car even.
Well, I have to say it. I have to say this. Can I make a point? You made your point, so let me make one. I'm very sorry you've been hit by a cyclist. I personally am very sorry about that. But you've been hit twice, and you're still here. If you were hit twice by a car, I think there's a much greater chance you wouldn't be.
Well, you can't prove that either way.
Well, I can actually. I can. The data shows.
You don't pay
The amount of fatalities that relate to bicycle collisions is very low.
Lady at the back, please. It's starting. Can we not have all shouting out? It's not working.
I believe in peace, so I see the good in all of it. Cycling for a young child keeps them fit, healthy, and an obesity crisis. We also have one of the highest asthma rates in Heathfield due to air pollution. It's pretty dire. So somewhere along the line there has to be a debate and perhaps meet in the middle. We need more space for our young children to learn to cycle, and if they get into the habit young, they'll be less car dependent, have better bus services and safer pavements. It can be done, it's done all over Europe. Cycling is a natural thing in Holland. People just cycle, it's a very natural thing. So there are two ways. It doesn't have to be a you and them. And we all remember the days. 5 years ago, I was cycling 23 miles a day. Today, I've got arthritis. Unfortunately, I can't do it at the moment. But do we not remember all being children on our bikes, out with our friends, feeling safe, because there weren't hundreds and thousands of cars just whizzing around. So there is a midway to go, but our children and our grandchildren surely deserve the joy of cycling, being able to be safe, and drivers and pedestrians too. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
We need to move it on because we do have a schedule to keep to, but we can come back to this in open questions if needed. We can We've got 3 pre-submitted questions on the same subject, which we'd like to go into now. So Bob Hope here, pass the microphone to Bob, please. We'll take all 3 questions, we'll let the council room and sit down and have a cup of tea. And then once we've taken all 3 questions, we'll open it to the panel to answer. So Bob, please.
Thank you. The Cabinet chose to overrule the Scrutiny Committee with regard to the Griffin report on the viability of the David Lloyd site. Given the Turing House school planning situation at Hospital Bridge Road and the timeline involved in any new feasibility process, can the members please confirm that the David Lloyd site should not be discussed as a realistic option for the school?
Right, that's number 1. Jane Pearsley, are you here, please? Jane?
Hi. My question is, can the members please confirm that planning cases such as the one for Turing House are decided only on their technical merits against planning law and cannot be influenced by political policies or local protest?
And then Angela Sharma. Is Angela here? Let's get my phone up to Angela, please.
Thank you.
If planning for Turing House School is approved, will the members support the council in working with local stakeholders in creating a great additional community facility?
Right, there you go. 3 questions. Who wants to take it first?
Okay, I'll answer the first one, which relates to the David Lloyd site. For those that may or may not know, we commissioned a report to have a look at the feasibility of whether the David Lloyd site could be suitable to have a school put there. And there were sort of 2 elements to the report. The first one was to see whether it would still be an option for the school going forward. But additionally, we wanted to have a look to see whether that site had actually been dismissed too early by the previous administration when they were looking at the various options for Turing House. And so the report came back and, in our opinion, did not conclusively say that it could definitely not be used for a site. So I believe so what you're asking is for us to rule that site out for Turing House. The Turing House situation is that we are quite far down the line with that process. The planning application has gone in, and that now needs to play out. Nothing can change with that situation until we know what the planning committee is going to say with regards to that application. So the David Lloyd site is not relevant to that process that's happening at the moment. And so I don't see any point in ruling out the David Lloyd site for Turing House, because if the planning application is not successful, and we have to be looking at a home for that school, because it's really, really important for that school that we find somewhere for it to be built, and so that it can have a permanent home, I think it would be highly irresponsible of us to rule out the David Lloyd site for the school. We will see what happens with the planning application, but if we need to be looking for somewhere else for Turing House, then we don't at this stage feel that there's anything in that report that would rule the site out. And additionally, even if it isn't needed for Turing House, potentially 5-10 years down the line we will need another secondary school, and it would again be irresponsible to say that that site is not suitable for a school, because we may need it in the future even if we don't need it for Turing House.
Okay, I'm going to pick up a couple of the other points. I'm Michael Wilson. So in terms of the planning process, I apologise if there are people who are aware of this, but obviously we've been specifically asked. The planning process is quasi-judicial, and the application that's currently in for the Turing House School is waiting to be validated at the moment. And once that's validated, the plans and everything will be on the website for people to view. We've also been asked whether or not we can put it into the local library, as they've done with the exhibition in Morlake. So I think we're trying to see if that's doable and possible, so that we can kind of get exposure to the plan. But it is, as I say, it's a quasi-judicial process. It can't be, if you like, influenced by political protest or political promises, is the question that is put. what the process would happen next is people can make their views known, whether or not they, on the basis of the planning policy that's there. So that's how you approve it or you go against it. It's based purely on the planning. So I step into something here. One of the things which I'm concerned about is the educational impact on Twickenham School. That's not a valid planning process point. So it would be foolish of me to make that point in the planning process. So I encourage people, I think we encourage everybody to make their views known. But if you are going to support the application, you have to support it on the basis of the planning grounds. And if you're opposed to it, you have to oppose it on the basis of the planning grounds. That is the only thing that the planning committee will take into account. I hope that clears it up. I think the other thing, the next question, which was sort of working with, should it go ahead? Let me be very clear. Of course, I think all of us on the panel would agree that wherever the school ends up, we are supporters of the school. There are obviously a number of parents, including from this area, who send their children there. We are absolutely sure to work with the school should it be placed there. We've had a meeting, and I know colleagues of mine who were elected before I was had meetings previously, and so there is absolutely no doubt in our mind that should the school go ahead, of course we would want to work with it, in the same way that I hope that the school will work with the local community should the school go ahead there.
As I'm the joint chair of the planning committee, I just want to expand slightly on what my colleague Michael Wilson said. So I'm saying this actually as co-vice chair of the planning committee rather than as Heathfield councillor. And as Michael said, of course, the planning committee is quasi-judicial. Now, any planning committee that sits, I will not be able to sit on for the very simple reason I'm predetermined, because over the last 4 or 5 years, or definitely the last 2 to 3 years, I've been working with many residents in Heathfield who think this is entirely the wrong site for the school. And having done that, having put down a motion at council to get the previous administration to sensibly look at other sites in the Teddington, Fulwell areas. Having done that, everybody knows what my position is. My position is this is the wrong site for the school. Having taken that position, I cannot sit on a planning committee because I am predetermined. So all this second question is based on the belief that somehow or the other, politically, we can tell a planning committee what to do. And as someone who sat on planning for 18 odd years, if anybody came to me and told me I had to make a decision based on what they wanted me to do, I would be quite rude in telling them to go away, because we have to be, in planning, independent, and bear in mind that it's quasi-judicial. So I think there is a lot of feeling in the community that planning is predetermined, that we, make decisions behind closed doors. And I just want to actually tell you in the community that is not the case here in Richmond upon Thames. The planning committee members are independent. They look at things only in planning terms. And if any of the planning committee pool has made a decision, they will not sit on that planning committee. And should the planning application come to committee, I would speak at that committee against the school being on this particular site in Hospital Bridge Road.
I just want to add to that I will really speak as well for the same reasons that John did, because my main concern living on the Woodlawn estate in Heathfield is the traffic implications, so I will be speaking on that subject at the planning committee.
Well, I hope that answers those questions. We will. Does anyone want to follow up on that?
Any other questions?
Sorry, I do appreciate what you're saying. I think it is wise to keep any site for future school build. But I just wanted to clarify the point. I can't remember the council officer who said how long feasibility would possibly take at David Lloyd, and therefore we're thinking about 4-year groups, 5-year groups currently within the school itself. Can you just remind me of how long they said it would be built, even before they were discovered whether it was feasible for a site? That's before any kind of planning, architects, builds, all that stuff. So just feasibility. How long did he say that was?
I can't remember what Mr. Chadwick, I think you're referring to the director of the environment, Mr. Chadwick. I can't quite remember what he said, which is why when I put the motion down about 2 years ago asking for the council to seriously look at it, I did so because both Councillor Yeager and I were councillors at that time. And we realised that to get planning permission at David Lloyd would take a number of steps because of the sort of planning policies that affected that site. We believed if they had taken the steps then, we'd be in a much better position now. The issue we have as councillors, as sensible people, if the planning committee turns down the application for Hospital Bridge Road, in my view, and it's only my personal view, in my view there's a very strong possibility that it will be turned down. What then? And as far as I know, there's no plan B.
And if I just add to that, I don't see the point in ruling the David Lloyd site out. Yes, you're absolutely right, there are various steps that would have to be gone through because of the various land designations of that site. But if Hospital Bridge Road is ruled out as a site by planning, I don't see how it's in anybody's benefit to be ruling out David Lloyd as unfeasible, because the school has to go somewhere if it's not allowed to go to Hospital Bridge Road.
Okay, John. I wonder if you can just confirm that the site in Hospital Bridge Road is metropolitan open land. It's rough land with no public access whatsoever. But under the arrangement with Turing House, they are going to allow 65% of that land open to the public.
But in planning argument, it is metropolitan open land. We don't have any degrees of what metropolitan open land is, the fact that it's private, the fact that it's been used for as long as anybody can remember as pasture. That is an irrelevance in a planning argument. Metropolitan open land is metropolitan open land. There's no degree of usage there. And we have actually seen that, quite a bit of what's been put into the council by the Education Skills Funding Agency on behalf of the school. And there is a proposal that a part of the land that is there at the moment will, if they get planning permission, become part of Heathfield Direct. So if it isn't quite the level that you're talking about.
And also we haven't seen the application that's gone in, so we don't know exactly what percentage would be for community use and what wouldn't. So I'm not sure where those figures come from because nobody's seen the application.
When the cabinet, with big applications like this, quite often the developer will ask to do a presentation to the cabinet. When they did that presentation, their initial presentation didn't include open space at all, but after discussion and certainly again, Paul Chadwick was making the point that actually having, one of the things that both the school and the ESFA have said all the way along is they want to open up the access to the community and make sure that there is a benefit, an additional benefit to the community. And so we strongly, I think everybody in the room sort of said, well actually, if you're going to go in without any public open space, you're not going to get very far at all. So their plans have changed, but until those plans are, we still haven't seen the actual, we're the same as you, the local authority has to remain independent when it comes to planning because of the quasi-judicial nature of the planning process. And so I check the website every day to see whether or not it's up and validated, and as of about 11 o'clock this morning I checked and it still hasn't been validated. So we haven't seen what those plans are, full plans are yet.
Right, we're going to take one more point before we move on, which will be from this lady here. But before we do, if you have a car, YR17 WSF, could you please move it because you're plugging in someone in the clinic?
Sorry, you're saying the council, you're independent at the moment, and you're on. Councillor Coons, you said there that you feel very strongly that the planning application will be turned down. Isn't that very creative?
No, yes, I am predetermined, therefore I cannot sit on a planning committee which will make a decision. Now, given that I've been on planning for 18 years, I can have certain views. My view is that there is an equal, I think it's 50-50% whether or not this will get planning permission. That's my view. That's my view. It's not the view of anybody else.
Can you say why you think it will get turned down?
I think it's my view. No, because I'll be arguing that as a planning committee, and I don't want to give any ammunition to anybody arguing against it.
You haven't seen the plans, and yet he's saying they'll be turned down.
Sorry, when I said before, I just want to clarify whether or not I confused you by saying, or I confused the room by saying that the local authority in this process has to have an independent role. So the planning officer who is working on it is independent of us. We can't bring any influence to bear on those people. We can't. There is a legal process which they have to go through. There's confidential conversations between the planning department and the applicant. So in this case, it would be the SFA and the developer. And there's ongoing conversation and dialogue. And only once the planning department, who are in this case independent, have submitted their plans, at that point can we make a full assessment. And to pick up, I guess, what you were then asking is, on the basis of what we know now, I think we are opposed to losing that piece of land from Whitton and Heathfield, because we don't have a lot of green space in Whitton and Heathfield, and therefore we've been very keen on wanting to make sure that we protect that open space. That's my starting point for it. Councillor Polish also mentioned about traffic congestion and other concerns. But again, we can't make those full assessments until...
No arguments about the, sorry folks, no arguments about the planning, possibly or just in the validation stage. I'm looking to the councillor, for those of you who don't know me, you have to be very, very careful about this. Is in the pre-stages of planning, we have to be very careful about the arguments which you put forward. Sorry if I look as though I'm being some sort of eminence reason that we have to be careful.
I'm pretty determined. Can I just say what I like? Can we just say one more point on this before we move on? So Nigel at the back, you can have his hand up. We just say one more, then we move on, but we can come back to this afterwards, but we need to keep your hand against the clock.
Hello. We'll know in the fullness of time when the Turing House is or is not coming to Hospital Bridge Road, and the planning will be followed and go through whatever appeals there might be on that process. We can probably assume that Hounslow Council, who previously or currently own that land, I'm not quite sure where the legal position is, probably will want to divest the ownership of that land. We can probably assume that horse grazing may not be continued if Hounslow Council decide they want to divest that land. So if Turing House doesn't go there, and there's other sites in the borough, like Nether Hall, that will have a similar thing, they'll become big open plots with no plan at present. We need our councillors to ensure that the Hospital Bridge Road, or the Nether Hall site, or whichever other sites might come up, put forward positive proposals for the positive benefit of those sites to the wider community, and not risk derelict sites that lay vacant and dormant for 20 years, like one on the riverside. So if Turing House doesn't come there, it's very important that the council act very timely to put a positive proposal forward for that site to take a positive step forward if we assume that Hounslow Council will divest to that site and the horse grazing won't continue.
I mean, just to point out that the difference between the Nella Hall site and the Hospital Bridge Road site and Twickenham Riverside is that the Twickenham Riverside land, do correct me if I'm wrong, is owned by the council, whereas Nella Hall is owned by the Ministry of Defence, and Hospital Bridge Road site is controlled by Hounslow Council. So in terms of us as Richmond Council, yes, we have control over what may or may not happen to Twickenham Riverside, but unfortunately Nella Hall is totally out of our hands. And we will be working very hard to try and make sure that if and when the Ministry of Defence do decide to dispose of that site, and whoever they are planning to talk to or sell it to, obviously we would want to work as closely as they allow us to make sure that the community is engaged and consulted, and that we represent the community as the best that we can to make sure that whatever happens with the land going forward is to the liking and the benefit of the community. But unfortunately, it is owned not by Richmond Council.
Okay, I just wanted to add to that explanation that with the Nella Hall site, there is intended to be very soon a consultation with people in Whitton and wider about what would ideally happen to that site. I mean, I say ideally because it's not in our ownership and depends if anyone can afford to buy it off the MOD. But that doesn't mean we can't do what they call it a site proposals exercise, where you outline what the council would ideally like for the site, and then any developer who comes along has to take account of that. And so, it'll be publicised, well, I don't know, spring, summer next year, when you will have an opportunity to talk about Nella Hall. And we'll try and make sure everyone knows when that is.
Paul's looking at on the cards. Right, we've got a couple more pre-submitted that we should get to before we go to the open. So, John Rose. John Paul Robertson, you are. If we can get a microphone to them, please.
Sorry, I don't have the text for my question, but I'll give you the gist of it.
Would you like the text?
Until July this year, it was the council's policy to seek the rebuilding of Hamworth Road and Hospital Bridge Road railway bridges, and the land was safeguarded to allow this to happen. These narrow bridges causes real problems for pedestrians who have to walk single file, and for lorries and buses who can't pass on the brow of the bridges. Can the councillors lobby for these schemes to be re-adopted as a matter of urgency?
I'm happy to take that one. I hesitate to argue a point with John Bowles because he's always so immensely well informed. But I actually think that it hasn't been council policy for some years now. I've brought with me the planning document where it did indeed have these two bridges in there as ideally bridges that would be widened. It's the one on Hospital Bridge Road and also the one on Hamworth Road. And they came out of the plan, I think around 2014. If you look at the site allocations work that was done 4 years ago, it just sort of got dropped. It's a very pertinent question though, and it might be quite useful looking at what those plans used to be, because they are safety schemes. The crown of the bridge in Hospital Bridge Road is too narrow for two large vehicles to pass safely. And, there's quite a number of issues on Hospital Bridge Road, and of course everybody's thinking about them at the moment, given what we've just been talking about. And one of the things about a planning application, trying to be constructive about all of this issue, is that we've been talking about, you need to talk about planning reasons if you support or if you object, or indeed if you don't necessarily have a view, but nevertheless you can see how the scheme might be improved. Well, this is an obvious chance to say, well, that bridge needs to be made safer one way or another. Whether those schemes could ever be afforded in this day and age is another matter, but there could be other ways of making the bridge safer. And I think this is an absolutely ideal time for us all to be thinking about that.
Tony Zuma, Tony's not here, but it is a question about parking. If people want it read out, I can read it out. Yeah, okay. It says, and it's more of a business-based question, so it comes from the Business Association. It says, what has happened to parking enforcement in the High Street? The regulation allows for up to 2 hours free parking, but it's not been enforced for such a long time that people are now parking there all day, every day. Loading bays are constantly filled with cars, and people are flagrantly ignoring the disabled bay restrictions and parking there too. This does nothing to help the traders, as potential customers cannot get parked to go into the shops. Can we please have regular enforcement back in the High Street to prevent these people parking all day?
Which High Street?
This is Whitton High Street. You can answer. Answer would be lovely, please.
Okay, so the straightforward answer is that we'll take it away. We'll see whether we can get some enforcement to go down there. I mean, we have a limited number of enforcement officers that cover the entire borough, and that means we can't be everywhere at all times. But if there's a proper issue of consistent abuse, then we'll look at it and try and make sure we get on top of it.
Yes, it's a related issue. Related. Just get one phone around there, please.
Why are there 4 or 5 different parking restrictions in Whitton High Street?
That is a little bit of a confusion.
Every time you go out of a vehicle, you've got to go and look at the plate to see whether you're allowed to park there 20 minutes 1 hour, 2 hour returning 1 hour, or whatever.
And some of those are also labour up because there's a loading bay with 2 hour parking.
So I'll take that away as well. I suspect, and I'm even the one that implemented it, I think I've been in place for the last 6 months, but I suspect these things have come from decisions of the past about trying to provide for a cross-section of different users. And actually, the lower the amount of time you allow, of course, increases the potential for turnover. So in a trade sense, right, it can be quite useful. You know, you've got some provision that keeps turning over, which means more people can visit. So whether we've got the balance exactly right there, we can, sorry, feedback, we can discuss, but I'll have to take away to the officers.
As a Whitton councillor, I can tell you one sensible thing I'm aware of, which is that if you're parking near the station, they are shorter time. And that, I think, there's an obvious reason for that. So, yes, we can try and tidy it up, but some things I think should stay where they are.
It's almost impossible to find it. Okay, I think because we've got to leave with the council, we'll be waiting to answer the next couple. James Marsh. Is James Marsh here? We get microphone to James Marsh.
Yeah, my question is about Brexit and the position of EU citizens in the borough. I think we currently have about 7% of the population in Richmond borough are EU nationals, and a lot of them perform very vital roles in public services and in the private sector, care home assistants, nurses, financial services, hospitality, construction, the list goes on and on. And if a large number of EU nationals want to leave the borough and leave their jobs, we would have a serious problem filling those with appropriately skilled people. So my question really is, what is the council doing to encourage current EU citizens to remain in the borough, fulfilling those vital roles, and also what can it do to encourage EU citizens in the future to come and live and work here?
I'm happy for anybody to take it. Okay, right. As I say, this is really an opportunity to hear from your own councillors rather than me. You can come and find me anytime you like. However, yes, we have a huge number of EU nationals and EEA citizens living in the borough. What we're doing at the moment is liaising with the citizens' advice, and we're putting on a series of information evenings for EU citizens to come find out what their rights are, to be honest.
and with the best one in the world, they seem to be changing on an almost daily basis, whether we're going to have a deal or no deal and all of this. But we are trying as hard as we can to make sure that we're offering reassurance to those people who live here and work here, and that they are as informed as we can. It's going to be difficult to say what we can do to encourage more EU nationals to come over, because as we saw in today's news, there is a drop-off in the number of EU nationals coming to live in the UK. Rather strangely, there seems to have been an increase in non-EU immigration, so all of these people who thought they were going to vote to leave because it would stop immigration have been slightly sold apart. So we will do as much as we can. What we do have, the one big number which we've been seeing is that there are about 21% of our social care people who work in the EU. And our EU nationals, compared with 7%, 7% who, for a national average, and that is about 600 people. That could have a real damaging impact on our elderly social care. So it's something we're keeping a close eye on, and we'll see what we can do. Thanks.
Okay. Sorry.
I just add one thing to what Gareth said as well. It's a bit abstract, but look, we as a council just want to make this place that's brilliant, it's a fantastic place to live, even better. So on priorities like air quality, on improving the travel in the borough, those are the things that we want to get better, and those will have an impact on whether or not people want to stay or come to this area. So insofar as we can do anything, we have to do the work on trying to make this borough the most appealing place for you to live and work.
Okay, and Jane Watson, is Jane Watson here, please? Sorry.
Yeah, I'd just like to follow up on that with regard to the Citizen Advice Bureau. There is one here in Whitton on the 12th of December, which is at the Whitton Methodist Church. If anyone wants to come, I'll be there with my German husband.
Okay. Jane, was Jane Watson here? No. In which case, I'll get rid of that. We'll go back to the open floor. Free for all. Hands up. Whoever's got a question, stick it out a bit. Oh, look, here we go now. Okay, we'll start with the gentleman with the glasses in the middle, and then we'll just ping-pong our way forward and back again.
Hello, I've got a question about buses. Will the buses be, well, obviously the buses will be affected by the 25-hour speed limit as well. In my experience, each time I've ever gone to Twickenham, Richmond, or Kingston, buses, with their levels, they have the opportunity to make up time, and certainly make up time by going on faster than 20 miles an hour. What effect do you think the 25-hour limit will have on schedules?
So in answer to your question, we've spoken with and continue to engage with all the drivers. None of them have expressed to me or to the council any concerns with our proposals, so I haven't heard any reflections that they're worried. Other London boroughs have done it. They've got the same bus infrastructure going through their boroughs. There are shifts that we can make. I think there's an earlier question about changing light signal phasing. We can do that if necessary, if there are any deleterious impacts. But the other point just to say is, for whatever we do on speeds, as I related earlier, if we get some people who are presently in cars in other forms of transport, that will make the roads less congested, and actually will ease some parts of the journey that are presently less efficacious for moving. So actually, it's a bit of a multifaceted impact. But as I say, I haven't heard any representations from the bus companies who obviously are the experts on this that they're concerned. And of course, TfL support 20 mph in general, and indeed want to put 20 mph on all of their road network.
Okay, next one, please. Work our way forward to the lady on the staff, please. Yeah.
Hi, I just wanted an update on the controlled parking CPZ application for area.
So this is around the train station, wasn't it? Yeah.
Well, around because we did a survey last year, and we were told in March this year, and I appreciate that the council has changed since that, but we were told the money was in the budget for 18-19.
So there are two live consultations that affect the wards here. Oh, sorry, not live consultations. Consultations have been conducted. One taking in some aspects of Whitton ward and North Twickenham, and the other being a wider one in Whitton and Heathfield. I haven't had a formal sort of response to that yet from officers about what that data shows, but having a look at some of the top line figures, there is some support for an introduction of controlled parking zones in some roads. We'll be working out which roads those are and be coming forward with proposals, but what I can tell you is it's not the case that every road consulted by any means was in favour of the CZ.
Yeah, we appreciate that because I did the original survey and I know the reason people said no, but our life was hell in Montrose, Rycroft, Jubilee and Pauline Crescent. And now that they're doing the footpaths in Jubilee, the illegal parking is shocking. Getting in and out of one's house is horrific.
Yeah.
And also we don't have any protection on rugby days.
No, I understand. So the response rate is across the board. The roads to show support for it, we will try to find a way to go ahead. Bearing in mind, because we need to find more than a single road. The council's policy is very clear. It can't be a single road.
We have at least 4 in the survey.
As long as
I think the same people.
As long as there is sufficient support in more than one road, adjacent road, then we will be able to go forward with CP lids in those areas. But we need to show support. And if people, after they've been consulted, have said they really aren't in favour, then we will not be able to impose a CP lid on those.
I understand that, but I think we had up to 89–90% in the roads that were really for it.
I think the highest figures I saw on top line for any given road were about 80%.
Yeah.
But there were a couple of outlier rates to that level of support. But we will work on it. Officers presently are working on a couple of CPZs which we've made decisions on and the implementation around those. The next thing to do is to look at these two, come forward with a report. Once I've signed off on that report, we'll move forward to explain that to residents and then look to implement.
And the other issue is, if Turing House does go ahead on that site, the planning only allows for parking for 40-something% of the staff. And there's no room to park now, so if that happens...
I mean, it's entirely possible. I mean, your ward councillors are the key people who engage with on this.
Yeah.
It's entirely possible that if a new school has an impact, if and when it is agreed, that will be something that might trigger some further consultation.
Well, hopefully we'll have CPZ by then.
All right.
Thank you.
Can I just add something to that? You mentioned that you didn't even have the protection of the rugby parking. And it's a funny thing. I feel that the areas that do have that actually suffer less from commuter parking because a lot of people don't understand signage quite honestly. And I know that in the consultation around the station, people were also asked if they would like to see an extension of the R zone. And I don't know, I haven't seen any of these results, but I truly hope that people said yes, because I just think, I know there was a consultation some years ago, and the results surprised me, that actually there wasn't that much take-up, and we didn't extend the R zone. But just while I've got an audience, to say, you know, it seems to me like a very good idea, because Tranmere, Mayfair, Melrose, all these roads seem to have more parking pressure than the east side.
They do.
And I think
the east side.
It's difficult to know why, but the R zone seems...
I've lived in London for 35 years and I've never been consulted before.
Okay, moving on next.
My name is Margaret Gordon. Talking again about the 20-mile-an-hour limit, many of the schools in Richmond have got a 20-mile-an-hour limit outside at the moment. Some of them have flashing lights as well to remind people. Can I take it that when the whole borough goes 20 miles an hour, that you leave those signs there just to remind people to slow down because there's a school? Because my fear is that you'll take those signs away and then people will just whiz past the schools and forget that they've got to go slower.
So I'll take that away. I mean, if we go ahead, because it depends on the outcome of the consultation, there are specific rules about how often we need repeater signs throughout the borough, and so we have to do that. And whether that would then potentially mean that we have to recite some existing signage, I couldn't definitely tell you that won't happen. What I would say though is, there's no doubt in my mind that there should be a greater intensity and focus on pointing out that you're entering a school zone and that therefore people should be even more attentive to their speed. So I think we need to be cognizant of that, and it's a good challenge.
Yeah, because at the moment people do actually slow down when they see that 20-mile-an-hour limit and they realise it's a school. If you take them away, they won't.
I have something to add to that each other sometimes, which is that Councillor Hartford and I put quite a lot of effort in last year when we were in opposition to try and get something done outside Bridge School, because there is no school unit there. And I think, just building on what you were saying, Margaret, I think that we should actually, if we have a blanket 20 mile an hour, we probably still need to do more outside schools, because people really can drive very fast along Miller, Warren, it's sort of wrapped onto the A316, isn't it? So I'm hoping that not only would the first one stay in, but we'll try and do more for the schools that never got it in the first place.
And while I've got the cabinet member here, one of the things that I think we could explore far more is putting into effect by schools not allowing any cars to drive past the school at all. There's some really interesting stuff being done in other London boroughs where they actually stop the road being used in some of our schools. It couldn't affect all of our schools, but in some of our primary schools it would be very useful as if we stopped any cars anywhere near the school. I'm especially thinking of people who have to live in Cobbett Road, Springfield Road, Alberton Road, and around the Heathfield Schools partnership, where this would be really effective.
Can I just add to that? In fact, my children used to go to Heathfield School, and I knocked a child over in Cobbett Road, who ran straight out of the school, right in front of me, just when I was drawing out having collected my children. So I think that would be a very good idea, because it had a terrible effect on me at the time.
Councillor Coombs is very old message, because we are looking at this, and we probably, we're looking at pilot a number of these school streets to see whether they work in places where we know they have support, where parents are mobilised to make clear that they want that. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's not possible to do on every school. Some are on major arterial routes and so on. But it's definitely something that this council might do. So I hope within 12 months you'll see the first one or two in the borough at the very least.
While we're on the subject of Heathfield School, I would just like to add that it's a slow process for me, but I am through the school's travel plan, which they are renewing, trying to do something about the parking around Heathfield School, as in cars parked fairly and squarely, four wheels on the pavement in the morning, but it is a slow process, but I am working on it.
Okay, we're on, gentleman over there.
Kids will be kids, they'll run out of school and they'll run in the road. That's what happens. Your badness is on the kid. But why can't you extend the railings along the pavements outside these schools to the crossing points so that kids do not run in the road in front of cars? I mean, there are railings partially around some of these schools, but they're not entirely effective because they just run to the end of the railings and shoot across the road. And I don't say they don't because I've lived with it for 45 years and I've been witnessed it all the time.
So we can look at it, we can certainly look at it. But the problem with railings is however much of an extent you put them on, there's always the point at which it ends when you still end up with the issue. Well, yeah, as long as it's possible to institute a good enough visibility crossing point. The other thing is, railings are also a mixed blessing. Transport for London are generally motivated to remove them. And the reason for doing so is that if a car impacts a railing, actually there's a lot of data that shows that the railing does more damage to a child than the car. So they're not a solution to all problems, right? We have to be very careful about impact potential.
The child will be on the roadside, the child will be on the pavement.
Yeah, the point I'm trying to make is that if you end up with a car hitting a pedestrian or a child, the railing itself going into the pedestrian is actually more damaging than the car. So we have to put them in sites where we don't think that occurrence is going to take place. But in principle, having a look at it, I mean, we're not against putting in the railing if it has a positive effect on improvement. The main driver for us putting in such changes, though, is generally driven by the school getting in touch with us and telling us that they feel that's necessary.
On railings and other street-like things, there's always a concern, especially with some of the railings that making the path so narrow that they can't be navigated by the mobility impaired and the visually impaired.
Okay, over to the lady at the top, please.
Totally different subject. Has anybody given any consideration of having a bus from Whitton that would go on a state right through to Whitton Station?
There's been lots going on about buses, so I'll hand you over to this for that.
Well, there isn't at the moment.
No, there isn't, but you need to go on to the Transport Alliance consultation about buses, which closes, I think, on the 10th, was it the 10th of December? Closes pretty soon, so do it quickly, because they've got a proposal there, and I think it's going to happen anyway, that the 110 bus, which is the one we've been well, some of us have been saying that we would like for years to go down Whitton High Street, they're going to do that.
But then what? You still need to get to Twickenham though as well.
Yes, well,
it's going to do that.
It's going to go near Twickenham and then it's going to go on to Richmond. Sorry?
Doesn't solve the problem.
Well, it does solve the problem of connecting the Woodlawn estate to its own town centre.
Yes. But we still need to get into Twickenham as well.
But it's going to go on from Whitton.
Whereabouts is Twickenham? You said it goes near Twickenham.
Well, it will be going to the Colours roundabout, so I appreciate that's not Twickenham, but as I'm hearing in my left here, you can always change buses very easily.
Not if you're disabled, you can't.
Well, and the H22, of course, will take you to Twickenham as well.
Just something to add on, really. If I can just add, this is really interesting for us because for years people have been campaigning, and it's not us, it was residents, have been campaigning to have a bus going from the Hanworth Road and Woodlawn Estate into Whitton. What's interesting about this is the unintended consequence, because what TfL have done is say, yeah, we know there's been this campaign for years, this is what we will do. Now we're getting all the people who wanted the bus to go into Whitton saying, actually, we want the bus to go to Twickenham as well, which is not what TfL are offering. And this is really fascinating that we are now getting yet another lot of people telling us that this proposal isn't really what we want. And I know Tom, who's been putting his hand up for some time, was going to make this point.
What I'm talking about is another bus, not the present bus.
We won't get another bus simply because the Mayor of London is actually cutting buses.
That's the point.
That is the point.
That's the point I wanted to make. I mean, this is not our consultation. We will respond as a council to this overall. But the context beyond really this change is actually reductions in bus frequency and services. And indeed, as Borough is probably not something particularly badly compared to some others. Not that I'm happy with necessarily what we've been offered. But the context is TfL making serious financial cuts and therefore reductions in the overall network. So the context of that, and I know that that doesn't mean that TfL's proposal will always please everybody, but I would just urge you that if you talk favour of the proposal in relation to this extension of service, that you nonetheless back it even if it is incomplete, because I think the chances are if it doesn't have sufficient backing, one of the few enhancements offered to this borough will be withdrawn.
Can I just come to the gentleman in front?
I understand all the problems of this, but the number of people who travel from Hanworth Road and the top of Powderman Lane to Twickenham far exceeds the people who on Woodlawn Estate who go to Whitton. There was a campaign where it was 2,000 people who had signed a petition, and they persuaded Transport for London to do this. But this wasn't done throughout the ward, which it should have been. And if you'd have gone to the top of Powderman Lane and the Hanworth Road, you would have understood. You've got children who go to Waterway School. You've got the whole of the Staines Road. You've got children who go to St James's School, and all of that. And this means they're all going to have to change buses at the bottom of Powderman Lane. It's ill thought out, and it was very selfish, but just to think that the few people who want to go to Whitton High Street, they're not going to have 2,000 people, which the petition was, going down to Whitton. That's not right. And they'll only go for a period of about 5 hours. afternoon. Then when the children come out, they don't go shopping. And that's it. And you're going to run a 17.5-hour bus service for what? A tour of Whitton and round St Margaret's and the rugby ground, nobody on the buses. It's a ridiculous idea. And people who've got that position up should have thought of other people. The whole of the ward should have been consulted. Thank you.
Well, it is open for consultation. This is a Transport for London consultation and is currently open. So if you have views about it, I would strongly encourage you to put your views forward. I think one of the interesting challenges we've got with this is it will benefit, the changes will benefit people in different ways, and it will impact negatively in different ways. So there will be some people who will think this is a good idea, and there will be some people who think it's not a good idea. So all I think we can do is strongly encourage you to make your views known. I think it would have been slightly churlish of us, and especially given the fact that there was such a huge response in terms of people asking for a service to link up the Woodlawn Estate and Hamworth Road to Whitton High Street, to suddenly come out and say this is dreadful. So what we've tried to do, certainly as ward councillors, is try to encourage as many people as possible to respond to the consultation. I agree with Councillor Eamon on this, that the overall picture has got to be, I just urge you to sort of think of the overall picture, because there is a decline in bus services across the board. We're not doing as badly as other places. So make your views known, and then we'll see what TfL come back with.
Okay, we'll jump to the lady at the back again, and then we'll come back forwards.
Hi, I do know it was a big, the 110 was a huge thing, leading up to the local elections by various people, but actually the bus itself will go through Barnes up to Hammersmith. Not a lot of people realise that. So it actually will serve a lot of people using Charing Cross Hospital. Secondly, I mean, no disrespect to the gentleman here, I love my Whitton High Street, and nothing would make me happier than to see more people coming into it, more people using the services, less vape shops, more shops we need, because at the moment, sadly, it just seems to it's being run down. We want investment, we want money into Whitton High Street. And also it leaves people, the Edgar Road Mill Farm, very isolated. So again, they can use the station, they can come to Whitton Station. I know people that were actually taking buses to Twickenham, the 110 to Twickenham, to catch a train, or to Hampton Station, absolute fact, rather than using our local station. I'm for Whitton and I'm for Heathfield, so I'm actually pleased at long last all those people that are neglected, forgotten, on the outskirts in Heathfield will finally be able to be part of the Whitton community.
Thank you for that.
Sorry, just make an observation that the TfL consultation address is at the back of the hall. This piece of paper here.
Sorry, just to correct that, the actual consultation is pinned on the wall at the back. For anyone who wants to read it, it's access to the internet.
We just come to the... All right, we'll come through to you next.
My question's not around the buses, is that all right?
That's fine.
Okay, so I know tonight's all about talking about our community and having say on local issues. The current council has stated they want to have a borough that's fairer, safer and greener. Now, regardless of what administration is in power, Heathfield is often the forgotten part of the Richmond borough, where people often feel they're not actually part of Richmond. We have the lowest level of investment. We're one of the poorest wards in the borough, and we get left behind. What's the council's plans to make it fair for Heathfield, people living in Heathfield? What are the plans to rejuvenate Heathfield? What are the plans to bring it back in, to bring it in line after so many years of neglect, regardless of which administration? So I think both of you, two main players, have always dominated London Borough of Richmond. What's going to be done? What are your plans for Heathfield?
Make an observation.
This perception that the council has ignored Heathfield is an interesting one. Wherever I go in the borough, and I actually do knock on doors right the way through the borough, over the years. I can assure you, people in Richmond town tell me they are the most neglected part of the borough. People in Barnes tell me that I live in the most neglected part of the borough. People in Twickenham tell me they live in the most neglected part of the borough. I know under administrations I was proud to serve in, we had enormous amount of capital investment in Heathfield Ward. You just have to look next door to here, you'll find that we managed to get the NHS to put a lot of money into building the Whitton corner. We managed to get a Labour government to put a lot of money into this borough and putting £24 million into building Twickenham School. We managed to get the Labour government to put in another load of money to open something that's still there, a children's centre next to Heathfield School, on the Heathfield School site. The previous administration, urged by us, put a lot of money into putting a lot of extra classrooms at Heathfield School. We have a lot of social housing been built in Heathfield Ward. So I rather take exception to people telling me we haven't had investment in this ward. This ward, I know in the 8 years we controlled the council, in the 4 years we controlled the council between 2002 and 2006, we had an awful lot of, 26 to 10, we had an awful lot of money put into Heathfield Ward in the form of capital, in the form of social housing. And the current administration's policy is to make it a fair borough for every resident in this borough. And one thing we will be making sure we will do is making sure that there will be equal spends in all of the wards that comprise this borough. I don't know whether Michael wants to talk about the community involvement, because this is a very exciting area that we hope to devolve power.
Yeah, so one of the things which I was going to pick up on is kind of what we do going forward. And obviously one of the reasons why we're sat here all tonight is this community conversation, which is the shift away from the cabinet sort of roadshow and having your ward members stand in front of you on a regular basis talking to you. Now, I hope we're in Whitton High Street every first Saturday of the month, and we are going to other places in the ward. The 3 Heathfield councillors were up in the Edgar Road estate earlier this month. So we're trying to sort of look at getting more involvement from people. Now, one of the things which I would pick up on is other parts of the borough, I think, have had an advantage in the past because they've got societies, they've got local groups who sort of come together. And I was only elected this year, so forgive me if I sort of generalise, but Whitton and Heathfield have seemed to, in the past, struggle with sort of getting groups of people to come together to fight for the funds that are available to kind of make improvements. So one of the areas, for example, John mentioned is the community infrastructure levy, which is the money you get from developers when they do a big development. A certain amount of it is sort of levied off. Now we're looking at we're going to consult on how that is going to be divvied up. Under the last administration's end of their sort of last phase of it, we got 3 bits of investment. I continued the rules, but we managed to get 3: Crane Park, St James and St Phillips, and I can't remember the third one. So we managed to get some money from that into from the community infrastructure pot. But going forward, we're going to look at how that money is divvied up to try and make it fairer, and hopefully that will get some more money into it in Heathfield. I think the other thing which we're trying to do is to try and encourage, and it shouldn't just be about the local councillors, although I'm more than happy to try and do that in the places where we can. But for example, we're trying to set up a Friends of Heathfield rec group. One of the specific reasons why we want to do that is so that we've got a friends group who are bidding for money which is available, which other parts of the borough are really pretty good at getting that money in, so that's kind of why I think there were about 12 of us in a room on Heathfield primary school, and we're starting that basis, and we want to get more people involved. And if you live in the area and you want to be a part of it, then brilliant. I know, again, I'm speaking as a Heathfield councillor. We are desperately trying to sort of get something set up on the Edgar Road estate to try and get some form of community sort of association kind of going. And so, again, if you've got ideas of where you think we can potentially look at those types of groups, then it's great. We do have there are some good examples where we've got some good, we've got John sat in the front here, and we get 60, 70 people regularly coming to the police liaison group, and we've had a good turnout tonight. And actually, it's just about, hopefully, as an administration, what we're trying to say to you is to try and say, well, actually, we're really keen and open to kind of get these groups of people together. And as John mentioned, we are looking at potentially mechanisms to devolve money and power down towards or an area-based level, but that's a very complicated process, and I'm certainly not, we don't have any fixed plans yet, and even when we do, or when we've got a plan to present, we'll bring it back to the public so that they can have their say on this thing. So I hope those are some of the things that we're looking to try and do going forward to tap into the investment that is available to get some further improvements in Heathfield and Whitton.
Okay, I come to the lady in the check shirt in the second row, please.
What I want to mention is about the 110 bus. I would like the council support. I know the council is not responsible for it, but I would like their support for it to go to Twickenham. We lose so much. We lose the hospital bus, so many people on Heathfield and the flats and the mill farm. They rely on 110 to get to the hospital. My friend's son goes to work. When he comes out at 10 o'clock, he doesn't want to have to wait for 2 buses. By that time of night, it's only running every half an hour anyway. I mean, if you miss 110, it's 20-minute wait at least. And it's just not funny. You see, these people say you can change. Oh yes, you can, if you've got all day.
Could I encourage you to encourage TfL, to reinstate the 110 going to the hospital? But not the way it is at the moment, but see, if we go back a few years, of course, it used to start, didn't it, at the West Mid, then go down to Hounslow, and then come round. And if they would just add that bit back on, that would at least solve that issue that you have. And it really wouldn't be very much to add on to the route, I don't think. So I don't know if that would suit anybody else, but it's certainly a thought that as your local councillors, because we'll be making some representation of action.
I also mentioned the social side of Twickenham. A lot of us who are retired, we take that bus and we go to the riverside. We go to the galleries. We go to Marble Hill Park. We have lunch there. I go to bookshops there. We go to Marks and Spencer's there. There's so much there. Whitton is about to lose its one and only butcher. I know that because I use that butcher. And it's going to lose it. Now, the next butcher is near the, I can't remember the name of the park, but that is on the 110 route.
Yeah, Bruce's.
And if that goes, you can't get across. In fact, you can't get anywhere.
There is a possibility that we might not be losing butchers and so on if we can manage to connect all of Whitton in the past. So, it's, I think there's a lot of good reason to join the town centre up with its outskirts, actually.
Yes, right.
The gentleman who feels very sore about people who want us to run on Whitton. Can I suggest that I feel that something's been taken away from us? Instead of having the 2 things, which I would think is quite reasonable in a city and in a place like Richmond, I don't think one bus should be taken away at the expense of the other. I think it makes perfect sense that we want to go to Whitton and we want to go to Twickenham, and why not? They're encouraging aged people to try and get out and about. I feel that it's making things very, very difficult. 2 years ago, I could walk without a stick, walk miles. Something happened to me, and I can't do that now. Do I have to become isolated? Because people think they can't have the 2 buses transport for London, think they can't have 2. Is it so much to ask?
No, ask them. That's what we're saying. It is a TfL consultation, and just bear in mind that the people who did that petition all those years ago wanted the bus to go to Twickenham. It is TfL who have decided to take it round to Richmond and so on.
And also, sorry, if I may say, there is a way for this 110 to serve both Whitton and Twickenham. And so if one goes on the consultation and suggests this, they might actually look at it. If you look at the proposed route to the 110, it would go down Whitton High Street, along Warren Road, past the stadium, and then down onto the 316. Now, the proposal at the moment is for it then to go along the Chertsey Road and into St Margaret's. It is not beyond the possibility that you could actually take the 110 down Whitton Road, past Twickenham Station, and then round there, and then so basically it goes into the centre of Twickenham and then turns left to catch up with St Margaret's. That is the way that you could get the 110 to serve both Whitton and Twickenham, and then to propose to put it starting at West Mid and going the way that Liz suggested. You could actually have a winner of all 3 things: the hospital, Whitton High Street, and Central Twickenham.
Can I just add as well on behalf of the council? So to be specific, we will respond to the consultation. And we've made kind of clear what the direction is in some of the press releases we put out. We're not happy with the overall TfL of reduced service provision. All I simply say, and look, the representations that we made this evening on the councillors and contributory ideas, those should be to the TfL consultation, because TfL will ultimately make the decision, not us. What I just would say, I just have this sort of cautionary note: be careful how you present your critiques to TfL. It's entirely up to you how you want to proceed, but all I would simply say is this is one of the few enhancements that TfL are offering on their entire network. They are, frankly, some parts of London infrastructure have been slashed and burned in terms of bus infrastructure. So this enhancement, this change, is something that I think, if you want a greater enhancement than it is presently proposed to be, that's perfectly understandable. But I would encourage you to be as supportive as you can be about what they've proposed, even if you want them to go further. Because actually, I think the risk is TfL get primarily just a lot of hostility and opposition because it's not good enough. You just won't get it at all. And that's been the easy option for TfL. They'll just withdraw that because it's another cost base. And they'll say, well, we'll just offer one less service because you didn't have enough support. So I just urge a degree of caution. I'm not saying it's a great provision. I'm not personally saying it solves everybody's problems. I'm just making you very aware that if you approach it through the prism of making the best the enemy of the good, TfL might well withdraw the good.
Okay, I think we've got time for just one more point as we're getting close to our finish time.
Yes, I'm chairman of the Whitton and Heathfield Police Liaison Group, and we meet 4 times a year. We've got a meeting next Thursday, 7:45, down at Whitton Church, St Philip's and St James Church Hall. We alluded to it. About 50, 60 people come. It's very useful. We decide on police priorities for the 2 wards. I'm also on the Safer Neighbourhood Board in Richmond. We also decide borough-wide priorities. What I would just like to ask, because Sergeant John McLaughlin is here, I'd like his views on how well the police are going to be able to police 20 mile an hour in the borough.
Before you answer, can I also ask? Please put that in the context of how long you were able to do enforce 30.
Thank you, John. I do say on board everything that's been said today, and there's a lot of viewpoints here and a lot of people have their own opinions. As a police officer, I'm very mindful that certain words that I can say today can be quite impactful, and that's not my position today. As the police service, I'm part of the community team, There's a lot of changes that are going on at the moment, and people are aware of sort of our infrastructure, the changing nature of police reviews, of how visible police officers are, and yes, I'll be honest, of how enforcement is at this time. Now, people are correct, laws and legislations, we are the enforcers for certain ones, not all of them. Some of the things brought up today, we don't enforce anymore. The council does. That's another issue itself. In relation to any new legislation going for speed limits, well, yes, we will enforce it. I can't say here and now how we will do that, because a lot of it depends on the officers around the street. It's our responsibility, and that's what we're there for. So all I would say is that it's been really interesting sitting here for me, not sitting up there, I suppose, in the room to ask questions. I do see both sides of the argument, and I'll just urge you to, when you leave today, just have a think about it, because there's some really, really valid points that have been made from both sides. I don't think we're ever going to get that happy medium for everyone, but I think everyone here, especially at the front, because I know the councillors very well and I do work with them, everyone's got the best interests of the public at heart. They can't change everything, we can't change everything as police, but we will do our best. And I urge you, like you just said to the councillors, if you have any concerns, please do come to me. I probably won't be able to answer everything or resolve everything, but I'll happily listen to you. I am the sergeant for Whitton, my colleague Ruby sends his apologies, he's the sergeant for Heathfield. We have 2 officers each for each ward, we have a PCSO each. We are limited, and it does take a little bit of time for us to get back to you, but we will do that, and we can obviously have it in well for we're here to do that. So, sorry John, that's the best I can do for you.
Okay, we have pretty much reached our time. I'm getting the dagger looks from the back. So,
well, I've been making some special pleading in words here on his behalf, because we were talking just now about community groups and so on. And of course, Greg was doing an excellent job with the Whitton Business Association, who are now rebranded as Love Whitton. And we've just had last week the splendid Christmas lights switch on, which wouldn't happen without WBA. And they need more people to help. And I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that this rebrand of Love Whitton is partly to encourage people to come forward and help with events. Because it doesn't have to all be down to the traders in the high street who are very busy anyway. People could come in and help. So it's going to be an excellent show. I think it's not necessarily want to blow his own trumpet, but please could we all try and do whatever we can to support our local shops and our local traders associations.
and just one thing I will say on that, we've had a few comments today about people with disabilities, mobility problems, this, that and the other. But one of the projects I've got for next year is making every single premise and shop in Whitton High Street completely accessible. At the moment, if anyone wants to go to the rugby, they have to come to Whitton Station if they're in a wheelchair, because you can't get out of Twickenham. Whitton is the only place to come to for those with mobility issues to get into places like that. Anyone with a mobility issue can't use Twickenham at the moment anyway, it's ridiculous. But even when those works are done, we've still got the best pavements, we've got the smoothest roads, we've got the best access in and out. We're going through the shops at the moment to try to make them all accessible, and I think we've only got one shop we have an issue with at the moment. So it's something that we are working with, and if anyone does have any issues, bring it to us. I know we're Whitton Business Association, but as Love Whitton, we've taken on community role as well. We're kind of a 3-pronged attack, which is high street business, non-high street business, and community groups. So that's how we want to bring everyone together. And subject to community groups, I want to say thank you to Martin at the back and his team for allowing us to have this place. There is loads and loads and loads going on here, and I'm sure he's got some stuff he can hand out to you if you want to know the groups that are here. It covers everyone from little toddlers up to the topperers. It covers every age range with the things they've got here. So please come and see them and use them. Apart from that, on behalf of me and the members here, thank you very much for coming.